Alara Voss had learned to be small. She had learned it the way other people learn to walk or speak, without remembering the first lesson, only knowing that by now it was part of her. She kept her shoulders low. She kept her eyes down. She spoke softly, and only when spoken to, and she moved through the halls of Hollow Creek Packhouse like a shadow that belonged to no one. 9 years ago, she had been someone else. A different name, a different life. A childhood inside stone walls, draped with banners the color of dark plum, the sigil of a thorn wrapped around a crown stitched into every curtain and every guard's shoulder. She had been Alara Thornwood then, daughter of a line so old that other packs used to say the Thornwoods did not descend from wolves, but that wolves descended from them. Then came the night the banners burned. She still remembered the smoke, the screaming, her mother's hands shoving her through a servant's tunnel with a whispered command to run and never look back, and never, ever tell anyone what she was. She had been 9 years old. She had run for 3 days through the forest until a passing trader found her, and, believing her an orphaned Omega, brought her to Hollow Creek, a modest pack far from the political heart of the unified territories. She had taken the name Voss. She had learned to fold linens and stir soup, and carry firewood without complaint. And most importantly, she had learned to keep the wolf inside her chained. It was not easy. A royal wolf, especially one of Thornwood blood, was not like other wolves. It was faster, stronger, sharper in every sense, built across centuries of careful bonding between the strongest bloodlines in the north. Alara could feel hers pacing beneath her skin every single day, restless, aching to stretch, to run, to fight. She never let it. Every night she pressed her palm against her chest and reminded herself, quietly, like a prayer, stay hidden, stay small, stay alive. For 9 years, it had worked. Then the Alpha Summit came to Hollow Creek. It happened once every 10 years, a gathering of the most powerful Alpha leaders across the territories, meeting to settle disputes, renew old treaties, and, this year, to discuss who among them might rise to sit upon the vacant throne, left empty since the Thornwood line was believed extinguished. Hollow Creek's Alpha, eager for prestige, had offered his modest but well-run packhouse as the meeting ground, and so for 2 weeks the halls Alara knew so well filled with strangers of terrible importance. She was assigned kitchen and serving duty, which suited her fine. Servers were invisible. Nobody looked twice at the girl pouring wine or carrying trays, and that was exactly how she wanted it. Except one of them did look twice. Alpha King Draven Ashgrove ruled the largest and most disciplined territory in the unified packs, a man known for his composure as much as his strength. He rarely spoke more than necessary, watched more than he participated, and had a reputation for noticing things other alphas missed. On the 3rd evening of the summit, as Alara refilled his cup without lifting her eyes, he noticed her. It was not her face that caught him, though she was striking in a quiet way. It was the way she moved, controlled, measured. Every motion of her body seemed to be following a leash she had tied herself, and there was something in the stillness of her eyes that did not match the posture of an Omega servant. Alphas carried themselves a certain way. Omegas carried themselves another. Alara carried herself like neither, like something trying very hard to disappear inside a role that did not fit her. He said nothing that night, but when her sleeve slipped back as she reached across the table, he saw the faint scar circling her wrist, pale and old, shaped unmistakably like a thorn wrapped around a small crown. He knew that mark. Every alpha of a certain age did. It was branded into the oldest treaties, etched into the ceremonial seals of a bloodline everyone believed had ended in fire 9 years ago. Draven said nothing, but he began to watch her. Word travels quickly among powerful men, even when it should not. Within 2 days, 5 other alphas at the summit had heard rumors. A serving girl at Hollow Creek bore a mark like the Thornwood seal. At first it was dismissed as gossip, but whispers grow claws when there is a throne involved, and the vacant Thornwood seat was the single thing all 5 of them wanted most. If the bloodline still lived, that changed everything. A living Thornwood heir would have a claim to the throne stronger than any of theirs, a claim rooted not in politics or conquest, but in blood law, older than any of their own crowns. None of them intended to let that claim surface. Better, they reasoned, to end it quietly, before it could be proven, before it could be spoken aloud in the summit hall, where witnesses and treaties would make it impossible to undo. They found her 3 nights later in the training yard behind the pack house, where she had gone to be alone for a few stolen minutes beneath the moon, the only time of day she allowed her tightly bound composure to loosen even slightly. The 5 alphas surrounded her in the dark, their faces set with the particular calm of men who had already decided something and simply needed to carry it out. Ilara knew, the moment she saw them, exactly what this was. For 9 years, she had prepared for this fear and hoped it would never come. They did not shout, they did not accuse her outright. One of them simply said, in a voice meant to sound almost gentle, that it would be easier for everyone if she came quietly, that whatever she thought she was protecting by hiding would not matter once she was gone. Ilara's whole body went cold. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to fold herself smaller, to beg, to do anything except what she knew. Somewhere beneath 9 years of careful discipline, she was fully capable of doing. Not far away, unable to sleep, Draven Ashgrove had been walking the perimeter of the pack grounds, turning over the mystery of the girl with the thorn-shaped scar in his mind. He caught the shift in the air before he heard anything, a stillness that did not belong to a quiet night, the kind of stillness that comes right before violence. He moved toward the training yard and stopped at the edge of the trees, staying hidden, watching 5 alphas close in on a single unarmed girl. He almost stepped in. His hand was already curling into a fist, his wolf rising with the instinct to protect. But something in the way Ilara stood held him back. She was not shrinking, she was not begging. She had gone very still, the way prey goes still, right before the ground shifts beneath a predator's feet. And Draven, who had spent a lifetime reading the difference between fear and readiness, realized with a jolt that what he was looking at was not fear. It was restraint reaching its final breaking point. The first alpha lunged. What happened next would be spoken of, in careful whispers, for years afterward, though few who heard the stories ever fully believed them. Ilara's transformation was not the slow, painful shift most wolves endured. It happened in an instant, a single fluid motion of moonlight and shadow, as if her human shape had only ever been a coat she wore too tightly, and finally let fall away. Where the quiet serving girl had stood a heartbeat before, there was now a wolf of pale silver fur, eyes burning gold, moving with a grace that did not belong to any bloodline Draven had seen fight in over 100 years of gatherings. She did not fight like an ordinary wolf, snapping and clashing head-on. She fought like water finding the exact weak point in stone. She turned the first alpha's own strength against him, using his momentum to send him crashing into the second, before either of them understood what had happened. The third came at her from the side. She was already gone, already behind him, a precise strike to the back of his legs, dropping him before he could turn. The fourth and fifth came together, thinking 2 at once might finally overwhelm her. But Ilara moved between them, like something out of an old war story, every motion economical, every strike placed with the calm precision of centuries of royal bloodline training, passed down through instinct rather than memory. Draven watched, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he felt something close to wonder. It was over in minutes. 5 powerful alphas lay defeated in the training yard, breathing hard, bruised, utterly humbled by a girl the entire summit had walked past a dozen times without a second glance. Ilara shifted back, breath ragged, blood on her hands that was not entirely her own, moonlight silvering her bare shoulders. For the first time in 9 years, there was nothing left to hide behind, no apron, no downturned eyes, no careful smallness. Just the truth of who she was, standing exposed under the open sky. She expected punishment. She expected the summit to descend on her at dawn with judgment in their eyes. She braced herself, the way she had braced herself every day for 9 years, for the moment her whole careful life would finally collapse. Instead, a voice spoke quietly from the trees. "You don't have to hide anymore." She turned, startled, to find Draven Ashgrove stepping out from the shadows, his expression unreadable in the dim light, but his eyes carrying none of the accusation she had feared. He looked at the 5 fallen alphas, then back at her, and something in his face had shifted from careful assessment to something gentler, something almost respectful. He did not ask if the rumors were true. He did not need to. He had just watched the truth defeat 5 grown alphas without breaking a sweat. Ilara's voice shook when she finally spoke. She told him everything, quietly, standing there in the moonlit yard with blood still on her hands and 9 years of buried grief finally spilling free. She told him about the fire, about her mother's hands pushing her through the tunnel, about running until her feet bled, about learning to make herself so small that no one would ever look closely enough to see what she truly was. She told him she had never wanted a crown. She had only ever wanted to survive. Draven listened without interrupting, and when she finished, he did not offer sympathy she did not want, nor did he flatter her with talk of thrones and destiny. He simply said that hiding had kept her alive, but it did not have to be the rest of her story. Not anymore. Not now, that the truth was standing in the open air between them. He held out his hand, not as a king reaching for a subject, but as one leader silently acknowledging another. It was a small gesture, but it carried the weight of everything neither of them said aloud, an offer of protection without demand, of partnership without pressure, of a future she could choose rather than one forced upon her the way her past had been. Ilara looked at his hand for a long moment. Behind her, the 5 alphas who had come to end her life groaned quietly on the ground, already understanding that whatever they had believed about the world an hour ago no longer held true. Ahead of her stood a king who had just watched her become entirely herself for the first time in 9 years, and who, instead of fear or ambition, offered only quiet respect. She thought of her mother's voice in the tunnel that night, telling her to run, to survive, to become invisible until it was safe to be seen again. For 9 years, she had believed that day would never come. Standing there beneath the moon, breathless and finally whole, Ilara Voss reached out and took his hand. She did not know yet what the crown would ask of her, or what battles still waited beyond that single moonlit night. But for the first time since the fire, she was not running. She was not hiding. She was simply standing in the truth of who she had always been, and for now, that was enough.